Could this be the end of democracy as we know it? Check this out. Leave your comments, ding the bell, share it with your friends, and subscribe to our channel. But I want to start out with this, how much is a life worth? Andrew Cuomo came out and said this on television this morning. And, Louise and I have had this conversation a couple of times. In fact, she just brought it up yesterday again of, where does all this, not where does all this go? How are they, making these decisions in the White House and in governors' offices and whatnot? Because we actually do make these decisions all the time. How much is a life worth? Ralph Nader busted GM and Ford over this back in the 70s because they concluded that if somebody died because of the side saddle gas tanks in the Chevy trucks or because of the Pinto and the Ford, the gas tank in the back, that if somebody dies, well, it's going to cost us about $250,000 or $500,000. I forget what the number was. I think it was $250,000 or $200,000 was their settlement. And now keep in mind, that would be $2 million in today's dollars. But they were like, that's what it's going to cost us. And so we'll save more than that on the 5-cent bolt kind of thing. The EPA makes these decisions. How many people will die if we increase or decrease, or not die if we decrease the level of fill in the blank of pollutant, atrazine or cyanide or, whatever it may be. And we have acceptable levels for poisons in our environment that we know kill people. We know that 10,000 people a year die just from air pollution from car exhaust. And in California, they said we want to reduce that number, and we're willing to raise the economic cost to do that. With catalytic converters first 20 years ago, and now with higher fuel standards. Whereas the rest of the Republican part of the country says no, and the Trump administration, no, we don't care about those people dying. We want the car manufacturers and the fossil fuel manufacturers to make more money, or refiners. So Cuomo was like, how much is a life worth? And I think that the Republicans have done the following math. You take $6 trillion, which is what the estimated cost so far. And you could argue that it's even $16 trillion because the Fed has pumped, or $10 trillion, excuse me, because the Fed has pumped $6 trillion into the big corporations, and Congress pumped about $2 trillion or about $3 trillion into big corporations out of that $4 trillion that's been appropriated. So that's $10 trillion. You take $10 trillion, and the new Trump projections are that roughly 150,000 people will die. I think it was 134,000. And so if you divide, 150,000 into 10 trillion, I can't do that math that fast in my head, but basically, you're going to come up with each life being worth, what, tens of millions, hundreds of millions of dollars? And the Republicans are looking at this going, the majority of the people who are dying from this, more than half of the people who are dying from this are either elderly, poor, or black. And Republicans don't think that any of those lives are worth even, $100,000. I mean, look at the arguments they've made to scale back Medicare and Medicaid, or even forbid people from getting Medicaid in the red states. All those lives aren't worth that much. I think Cuomo nailed it. And then on top of that, you've got, and I'm wondering if you think so too, and do you think that this is, does this make sense, that this is the Republican math? And for that matter, should it be our math? I mean, is it acceptable? Apparently it is in Sweden. Is it acceptable to have, let's say that we completely open the country back up like Trump wants to do so that he can have a roaring economy to get reelected in November? Is it acceptable to have 1 million deaths? And if you have 1 million deaths and it costs, and the damage, of preceding that was $6 trillion to the economy, that's still, whatever that works out to be, it's still a lot of money per family, per person. So, I think, Cuomo has opened the door to this conversation. I think it's an important conversation. And maybe you can do the math for me faster than I was able to do it. Meanwhile, Donald Trump says he will not sign any legislation to stimulate our economy if it doesn't include a massive cut in Social Security. I mean, a cut so large that it may well force the Social Security system into the same crisis that the post office is facing right now. This is the way Republicans tear down government. This is the way America-hating Republicans tear down government and replace it with big corporations. They want to tear down the post office. They've been tearing down the post office since 2005, or 2006, I guess it is. Tearing down the post office. They want to replace it with FedEx. And they want to tear down Social Security and replace it with Citibank and Wells Fargo and Bank of America. I mean, it's just that simple. He's not going to sign any more stimulus packages unless there's a huge cut in the Social Security tax, which funds Social Security. He calls it a payroll tax cut, but it's really a full-blown attack on Social Security itself. You know, the Republican strategy is to replace government. You know, Steve Bannon said, our goal is to dismantle the administrative state. What does that mean? Destroy American government. These guys hate America. They hate our government. They hate our values. The pluralistic, all men are created equal, all people are created equal, the values of the founders of this country. These Republicans hate these values. And they are doing everything they can to destroy this country. They cut the regulatory agencies. They cut, the funding to like the EPA so that there's more poison in our environment. One of Trump's first pieces of legislation was to let the big coal mining companies and oil refining companies pour more fossil fuel waste into our rivers, knowing that that's going to be in the drinking water of millions and millions of children downstream who are going to be neurologically and developmentally damaged. They don't give a rat's ass. They hate America. They just want to extract all the cash they can out of us. Workplaces and residential areas near factories and toxic waste sites, they're sacrifice zones. And then they say, just let the big corporations take it over. This is the biggest attack on American democracy in my lifetime. And they are succeeding. They have succeeded in destroying the EPA's ability to regulate this country. They have succeeded in destroying the Interior Department's ability to protect our public lands. They have succeeded in kneecapping Social Security and Medicare to the point that it takes 2 years to get a Social Security disability claim processed. And the funds are all low on money. They have succeeded in kneecapping the IRS to the point that they're no longer auditing super rich people like Donald Trump. They have succeeded. Will they finally destroy American democracy altogether?